Hi, I'm Jay from the Flutter community team.
Hi, I'm Filip, DA from the Flutter team.
Yeah, the actual one. Yeah.
Hi.
We're still at DroidCon day 2, and I've been really enjoying myself. How about you?
Pretty good. Yeah, I've been enjoying myself a lot, especially since my talk was today, and so since then I'm like, I'm actually talking to a lot of people, but it's less stressful.
Yeah, I get that. You've got no big things waiting for you.
Yes.
Okay. And you've been here since today, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yesterday was, it has nothing to do with Flutter or anything else, but I was traveling from my hometown in Czech Republic, and everything just went pear-shaped, and I got here like 10 p.m. yesterday. But anyway, it was apparently yesterday was more of a community.
Yeah, that's right. There were a bunch of people. There's more today though, definitely, and especially at the Flutter booth, which is really cool to see. But yeah, yesterday was more, I guess, relaxed. So today's the real deal, just like tomorrow. So could you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Filip. I've been at Google for ages now, and I maybe 6 years ago I started doing what we call developer relations, and so like writing samples and writing articles and stuff like that for Dart. And at that point, Dart did not have Flutter, Flutter was not called Flutter, and it was very small. But it had Angular Dart, like the Dart for web, which is now kind of being resurrected through Flutter for web. But anyway, at that point, Dart was like the least cool thing ever. Nobody cared about it, and that kind of actually was good for me. Like I was a little bit disillusioned by all the cool new high-tech tech, and I wanted to do something that's actually is robust and stuff like that. So that's how I got into Dart, and then I think 3 years ago I went to the US to work from there. I was originally based in Prague in Czech Republic, and then in the US, maybe a half year after I went there, they were like, "Well, Flutter is taking up. Let's switch you to Flutter," which was a good idea because Dart at that point was apart from Flutter, there was not a big thing going on.
It was open source at that point, I believe.
Yeah.
It's always been.
Yeah. Well, it's from the start. Flutter has been open source, but it was what I believe is the first kind of appearance of Flutter was Sky, I think, on Dart Summit in 2000 and I'm gonna say 14 or something like that. And at that point it was completely it was open source, but it was completely experimental and
sort of state. Interesting. Yeah, it must be awesome to see how it has grown from there.
It is weird. Flutter is amazing and it's doing really well, and it's this thing that kind of inspires good community. That to me is the most interesting thing. It's not just cool technology, but it's also a good mix of approachable and mature. It's not just we can do a nice little Hello World project, and on the other hand, it's not you have to first learn everything about something in order to start using this. And maybe because of this, and maybe because of other things that the Flutter team did and what we did later, the community itself is super nice, and people are kind of welcoming for each other, and people are not hyping this too much. So it's always it's been the best experience I've had so far at Google in terms of a technology that is open source.
Awesome. Yeah. I love how open it is as well. And you said something about it's not just Hello World, but it's not hard to start with either. There's an approachability to it.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense how the UI is structured and all that.
Yeah. And it's always like there's always a balance, right? Like you can make something very magic and very like nice and approachable, but at some point you will have to kind of admit that it's hard to build software and it's hard to do all these things, and if you don't give the developer kind of the insight into what they're actually doing when they're writing the code, at some point they will have a bad time.
Right. If it's just a black box.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I think Flutter again struck a really good balance in terms of like it is very readable, and there's definitely like compared to an MVC app, there's magic going on, but that magic is very transparent that like you're building and then like Flutter makes it appear on the screen.
Yeah. You can follow the entire process if you want it.
Yeah,
exactly. Do you think that Dart helped much, that the choice of Dart to be the eventual language? Because I believe it used to be JavaScript for a little while. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah. It is. So it was actually, I think it's 2 times they tried to do it in JavaScript, and the reason they didn't go for that, I always say, Dart, from the marketing perspective, is a really bad choice for anything. At least it was for like in 2015 and before,
when it was
because like you don't want to introduce another language when it's pretty crowded right now, and B, nobody knows a lot about Dart, and C, Dart is not this kind of like a gimmicky thing that you like, oh, Dart is this thing that does blah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually
a general purpose.
Yeah, it's a general purpose. It's very boring, and by design it's boring. But from a technical perspective, it's a really good choice, and I don't think, as you say, like many of the things, like for example, being able to cheat an AOT and have the same everything, and also the way that it evolves, so that we can have the UI encode things in lockstep with Flutter, that wouldn't be possible.
Right.
And then there are the lower level things that I'm not pretending to understand, but
where tree shrinking comes in, for example?
Tree shrinking, but I was thinking about like generational garbage collection, because for a system like Flutter to work well and fast, you have to be able to do garbage collection really fast, and especially like in a system like that, you make like on every frame you make a lot of new objects that you have to clean up really fast, and if it's just, and generation garbage collector is like just made for that, right? And so and Dart had it from the start. So this is kind of the technical realities, and then I think it's actually the boringness and the kind of standardness of the language, which does not by itself, it does nothing for Dart, right? Like it's not that there's like a Hacker News think about like how it's awesome that Dart is boring.
There's this one cool thing, and that's why everybody should use it.
But I've heard so many times that people are like, yeah, well, I didn't like Dart, I didn't know why Flutter is using it, but then I used it for 2 weeks and now I understand that, and nobody can tell you like, oh, it's because of X or Y. They can maybe give you some examples, but mostly it's like it's basically about being very readable and being very upfront about everything, and being very boring in the syntax as well, right? Like there's no like asterisks everywhere.
Special syntax stuff, exactly. But that makes it easy to pick up as well if you come from the background of maybe C# or Java or JavaScript even, or you have done React in the past. Yes. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really glad. I'm really glad that this is kind of like this. I started with Dart, and at that point it was kind of this crazy career move. Like, why would you want to do something like this? Like, why would you want to talk at conferences about something that everyone kind of expects is going to die? And it made like a full 180 switch in the last 2-3 years just because of Flutter, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that as soon as the Flutter project, that it was decided that Flutter would use Dart, that it sort of grew together in a way? For example, I believe it's doing UI-centered code such as collection fors and ifs.
Yes.
That's all features that people wanted from Flutter, but that's now in the Dart core SDK, of course.
Yes.
So do you think that they grew together in that way?
But I think it's a pretty recent thing. For a long time, it was basically. I mean, they've always talked to each other, these two teams. But for like you have to remember, Dart is still I think the biggest usage of Dart at Google is for kind of these business-to-business apps like Google Ads that are not Flutter. They are in Angular Dart. Yeah. And so that's like bringing a lot of money to Google, and this is like a huge amount of code, and it's mission critical code. So especially 2 years ago, like Flutter was this small compared to the big like driver of Google Ads.
Right.
Nowadays, obviously, still like Google cares about money.
Yeah.
so there's still that, but also even Google Ads, their apps are in Flutter, not just Angular Dart, but like the mobile apps, right? So you kind of have that double pressure on Dart to be very easy to use for Flutter and to kind of support all the use cases that Flutter needs.
Because a change in the Dart SDK might be good for Flutter, but Angular Dart might suffer because of it, for example.
Yeah.
So you have to keep that in mind. That's interesting. Never thought about that way. And so what are you doing at DroidCon here with the Flutter booth?
I had a talk today, but mostly I'm just sitting and talking to developers who are using or not yet using Flutter or should not be using Flutter, and that's my favorite part, is when I can talk to someone from using Flutter, because I think it's the worst thing you can do is to kind of try to persuade someone to use technology that's actually not good for them.
Right.
So anyway, that's what I did, and the past 2 hours I was sitting in the one-to-one booth where like people can come up to you, often people from firms or companies that are already using Flutter, and just like talk about a specific project that they have.
To get sort of this one-on-one.
That's
nice.
Yeah.
And so, to switch gears a little bit.
Yes.
I saw the Boring Flutter show. That was really interesting to see because as they said in the as was said in the first episode, it's like this is not your typical like the tutorial. So there's a Flutter deep dive which goes into a specific subject within about 5 minutes or something. Then you have all these different sources, widget of the week, for example. But then there's Flutter Boring Show, which is literally like an hour or longer.
Yeah.
And there you go into great detail on what it's like to build an app, right? Which I really appreciate because, it's really cool to have that explanation while doing it. So, do you know how that concept sort of came to be for the show?
I was actually I was thinking about something like that for Dart a long time ago, and I always wanted to have something like this because I feel like it is really important to have all these like long like shorter things and videos and tutorials that are very focused, but I also think it's really important for you to see when things are not doing that well, and just like the real deal, right? Because there's a lot of if you don't see it being like, if you don't see a problem, you could imagine that it's like your fault. It's like, I'm this like imposter, like I'm the one doing it wrong, and like everyone else is probably way past me and stuff like this. If you see someone like we had Ian, like the co-founder of Flutter, being dumb stuck about something at Flutter for at least like 5 minutes with me, and that kind of tells you, yeah, it's okay to be a little bit like, dumb stuck about any kind of technology. And so to me that was really important to have something that's kind of very humble and honest about what the technology can do and cannot do, and that you will have runtime errors and all these things, and you will have you will just make mistakes. And so we did this with Andrew 2018, I think February, the first thing, and it went actually much better than I expected. I thought we would have like 2 or 3 of these and that would be enough, but then people were like, yeah, we like watching it, and it's kind of fun in a way that it's not, if you have a really well produced short video, it's so full of content that you have to really be like, oh, okay, did I miss something? Like that.
Go rewatch that.
Yes. This is more like a podcast. You're like, you don't care. You can do whatever. You can make like a sandwich while looking at it, and
just
that's fun.
To the explanation.
Yeah. So it blew out of proportion for me. Like I did not know that this will be
was going to blow up as it did.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But and I really like that other teams, not just Flutter, but not just the community of Flutter, but also other teams are using this approach now. And I really hope that this is going to be like the normal thing, where people are like, yeah, we have a new technology, we have a new API. This is like, if you have an hour, you can see how we are using it and how things sometimes don't work, but like at the end, hopefully we'll get it working.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to see that everybody makes mistakes, and that's okay, of course, and to see the mindset and the steps that somebody takes to solve some of these problems. That was really interesting. I also vividly remember that at one point you had made, I believe, a Hacker News clone or a Hacker News app, and then in the next episode it was like there was a comment from a user in the last episode that we did something wrong, that they spotted something, and then you fixed that. So it's also the community feedback.
Yes.
Right?
We should do more of that. We actually, that was one big thing that Andrew pushed us to do, and I'm really glad that he did that. And again, we should do more of that. Is that like we really try to read all comments below every episode, and then introduce things from those comments into the next one.
Right.
Sometimes it's not possible because we already know that we'll be talking about something, and then do something else. Sometimes we just don't have the time to read it, but like most of the times we do, and that has been very helpful. And this is also a reason why we're thinking, oh, maybe we should do this live. Like that might also work.
So you immediately get that feedback from chat.
Right. But the reason I'm hesitant is that if we do that, then it could kind of, even though we're there and we're kind of distracted and we're kind of pair programming, at least nobody is pinging us with like their suggestions. I think if we do live, it might get it to be a little too live, I guess, like too distracted. So we'll probably try it one of these days, and we'll see.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And so for you personally, like what do you see as a developer maybe to happen in the future, either with like yourself as a career, or being a developer at Google, and just with Flutter in general? So where do you see yourself in 5 years, for example?
So I was just talking to Planetis, who's a friend of mine from the past, and he was talking about like this AI versus UI, right? And right now, if you talk about AI, it's mostly chatbots and like conversational things, and I'm not a big fan personally. Mostly because I just can't deal with it. Like I'm like I want to talk to this. But I think there's definitely with Flutter, for example, and the fact that you really have control of every pixel, 60 frames per second, you will still have UI that like we understand it today, obviously, but I think there are ways to innovate in this sphere. Like there can be graphic design that is less like this, only animated, like from left to right, but there could be things that are animated and motion design that we just don't know could be done, because until now we did not have that flexibility. And with AI, that's probably going too far, but like with AI, you could think about like instead of like hard coding some of these things, there could be things that will kind of be dynamic in terms of that, and it does not need to be text, or it does not need to be some like Cortana or whatever telling you something. It could be the UI that's reacting. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
Interesting. And for you, you're just happy at where you are?
Yeah. This is obviously amazing to work with a technology that is going up and is actually solving problems that people have, and the team is amazing. So that even if it wasn't going up, it would be great to do that. So yeah, I'll be around.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for watching. You can click around here to see more about the Flutter community, and we'll talk to you next time.